The morning the fountains gave up the ghost, the cops were already posted at the gate. Cedar Ridge Estate's grand entrance, normally a smug display of leaping water jets and dramatic uplighting, sat embarrassingly dry. Sprinklers wheezed nothing but air. Lawns were fading from emerald dream to something closer to a bargain bin Home Depot rub. The decorative pond resembled a salad bowl someone forgot to refill. And right in the center of the mess stood Patricia Clean, reigning HOA president and self-declared monarch of Cedar Ridge, hollering at a thoroughly exhausted police sergeant with enough force to rattle windows. Her hair was ballooning in the humidity as she screeched that I had cut their water out of revenge because she'd reported me for some supposed fish violation. The sergeant blinked at her, slow as molasses, and told her flat, bored that fish crime was not an actual offense. Patty swung a perfectly polished French tip finger toward me. The quiet guy standing near the squat brick pump house on the bordering lot, hands tucked in pockets, cap low, sunglasses mirroring the whole spectacle. That guy was me, Evan Rhodes's, the soft-spoken oddball the HOA preferred to nickname the Pond Weirdo. I gave the sergeant a polite nod and said, "Morning, officer. For the record, I hadn't cut off anyone's drinking water, just the HOA's non-essential decorative supply." Huge difference. Patty shrilled that I had no authority, that their water wasn't mine to control. I turned, unlocked the steel pumphouse door, and swung it open. Inside, a neat row of digital readouts glowed over a labeled panel, including one freshly tagged switch: Cedar Ridge Estates HOA Irrigation and Fountain Supply. Ownership: Rhodes Utility LLC. The sergeant narrowed his eyes at it, then at me, and asked half incredulous whether I actually owned their water source. I shrugged and laid it out. They called the police on me for relocating my fish. They trespassed on my utility easement. They broke my locks. Patty froze like someone had hit pause. I told the sergeant I'd issued warnings, certified letters, emails, even hand-delivered notices. She ignored everyone. I tapped the court order taped to the door and said I was following the judge's instructions. I enjoy three things: peace, water systems, and fish. I worked from home as a remote infrastructure engineer, the kind of person who knows an uncomfortable amount about pumps, pressure, and redundancy. I'd inherited a strangely shaped utility parcel wedged between Cedar Ridge Estates and a patch of scrubby green belt, an old water lot with a groundwater well, pump house, retention pond, and a network of buried lines feeding the community's fountains and irrigation. Decades before Cedar Ridge existed, the developer struck a deal with the water district. Homes would get municipal drinking water, but the lush landscaping would run on non-potable well water from this little utility property. That lot and the tiny private water company attached to it landed in my hands when my aunt died. I kept the system running. The HOA paid a laughably old legacy rate to support their obsessive turf maintenance. Cedar Ridge glowed like a golf course. My pumps purred contentedly. Everyone was satisfied. Well, almost everyone. Cue Patricia Clean, HOA president. Patty hated the idea that anything existed beside her pristine neighborhood without falling under her command. She adored rules, matching fonts, and the satisfying echo of her own voice saying things like community standards and architectural review. I was the opposite of her entire personality. I paid my utilities early, kept my modest little house clean, cared for my utility parcel like a shrine to function over aesthetics, and spent my free hours tinkering with aquaculture setups. My current project was a properly permitted recirculating koi pond in my backyard, supplied in part by overflow from the retention basin on the utility lot. When I dug a narrow connecting trench and installed a filtration system, I submitted the forms, passed the inspection, and posted the required notices exactly the way the county spelled out. Patty saw fish, hoses, and equipment anywhere near her subdivision and instantly declared it forbidden. It began with a letter dropped in my mailbox to smug for such tiny stationery. The subject line said, "Unauthorized water feature aquarium livestock. Dear Mr. Rhodes's. The Cedar Ridge Estates HOA has noted the construction of an unapproved pond and the appearance of large ornamental fish visible from the southern fence line." I had to glance around my living room. I didn't live in Cedar Ridge. My property sat outside their boundaries. A chain link fence and a decades-old legal description made that extremely clear, so I sent back a short reply. I am not a member of Cedar Ridge Estates HOA. My land is not under your jurisdiction. My pond and fish are fully county approved. Kindly remove my address from your enforcement database. Signed, E. Rhodeses. I honestly thought that would settle it. Patty, naturally, viewed it as an invitation to escalate. Soon I was getting courtesy notices. Things like algae visible from roadway, aesthetic disruption, potential mosquito habitat, and verified odors from water feature, subjective nuisance complaints. She began whispering to neighbors that my shady pond operation was polluting their water supply. She insisted the koi were invasive and illegal to keep anywhere near a community water system. From my side of the fence, I could hear pieces of her little sidewalk sermons. This is why our water tastes strange, she'd say knowingly. We have no idea what chemicals he's dumping over there. Honestly, he might be breaking federal laws. I wasn't. I had a binder of permits separated by color-coded tabs. But when that didn't stir drama, Patty advanced to surveillance mode. Phone out, recording through the fence slats, taking pictures of my filtration unit, zooming in on pipes, gauges, anything that looked official. She had no clue. I dealt with curious neighbors before. I had not dealt with someone posting my utility equipment in the HOA Facebook group with captions like, "Does anyone know if this is safe? Looks like some kind of DIY treatment plant." That was when I created a new computer folder labeled, Legal HOA Nonsense. Into it went screenshots, emails, everything. Then came the fish relocation incident. On a blistering Saturday afternoon, I was transferring several of my larger koi from the retention pond side into the freshly completed backyard pond, which connected through a controlled, filtered channel. I was literally in the middle of the transfer net in one hand, fish bag in the other, when a voice screeched from the fence line. "That's it. I'm calling the police." Patty stood there recording me like she was documenting a felony. She barked that I wasn't allowed to move livestock through open water like that. Said it counted as illegal stocking. Then she declared, "You're interfering with the HOA's water system. I'm reporting you for contamination, animal cruelty, and terrorism against the community." I blinked at her and asked, "Terrorism?" But she was already punching 911 into her phone with righteous fury. I expected maybe one border patrol officer to show up and ask a few awkward questions. Instead, because Patty lived for theatrics, I ended up with 2 squad cars, a city environmental health inspector, and a building code official who looked like he regretted his entire career. They toured my yard. I showed them my county permit, my water quality readings, the physical separation between my private recirculating pond and the HOA's non-potable irrigation lines, and the simple reality that Cedar Ridge's drinking water came from the municipal main, not my tiny well. The inspector actually chuckled, then told Patty, amused, "This is fine. He's within code," he added. "His fish are legal. Honestly, his water setup is cleaner than half the restaurants I check." Patty, watching her big dramatic moment dissolve, pivoted immediately. She snapped that I was weaponizing water, insisting I had the power to shut their entire community down whenever I wanted. I opened my mouth, then shut it again because, technically, she wasn't entirely wrong. The building official exhaled heavily and informed Mrs. Clean that I wasn't in her HOA and she had zero authority over my property. That should have closed the book. Instead, it flipped some internal switch in Patty's brain. Within days, I discovered one of my utility locks had been cut and replaced with an HOA-branded padlock. A Cedar Ridge "No Unauthorized Access" sign appeared on the fence of my pump house. Their newsletter proudly claimed they were taking steps to secure community water infrastructure and ensure compliance with HOA standards. I stood there with the newsletter in hand, staring at the pump house I legally owned, now decorated like a middle school group project claiming jurisdiction. I called the non-emergency police line. They told me to document everything, so I did. Then, late one night, my motion alert chimed. I opened the live feed in time to watch Patty and 2 board members shimmy through the utility gate, cut off my actual lock, open the pump house door, take photos of the control panel, and start yanking on a clearly marked valve with the red tag reading, Do not adjust system calibrated. I didn't rush out there. I forwarded the footage to my attorney, the County Water Resources Office, and the State Utility Commission with a short message. Hello, this is my private utility parcel, which provides non-potable irrigation water to Cedar Ridge, HOA. Under contract #4478.I. Believe their board members have just committed criminal tampering with regulated water infrastructure. Regards, Evan J. Rhodes's owner. Rhodes Utility LLC. Turns out that messing with utility infrastructure isn't a quirky little mistake, it's the sort of thing that makes regulators pull out clipboards and put on stern expressions. Within a few days, a state utility investigator called me to take an official statement. The county water department requested the complete Cedar Ridge contract. The sheriff's office opened a case for trespassing and tampering when the investigator and a deputy visited the HOA clubhouse. Patty tried her signature strategy: speak loudly, project confidence, drown everyone in HOA terminology. She insisted she hadn't tampered with anything. She was simply inspecting community assets. She declared, with absolute certainty. We received reports of unsafe fish activity. The investigator calmly held up a frame from the security footage showing Patty's hand wrapped around the do not touch valve. He explained, evenly, that the valve controlled the intake for the HOA's irrigation line. If she'd forced it the wrong direction, she could have ruptured the line or caused a backflow contamination. This is not how inspections work, he finished. The deputy added, more tired than angry, that she'd already been informed that my property wasn't under HOA jurisdiction and that the warning was documented. My attorney then slid a folder across the table and stated, quite professionally, that due to the ongoing harassment, trespass, and now recorded tampering, Rhodes Utility LLC would be invoking its rights under Section 9 of the water supply contract to terminate service for non-compliance. Patty blinked rapidly, then sputtered that I wasn't allowed to shut off their water, that doing so would destroy the community. The city supplies your drinking water, my attorney said smoothly. We're only talking about your sprinklers, fountains, and decorative features. You'll survive. Your grass may not. The utility investigator cleared his throat and added that he would be recommending administrative penalties for unauthorized interference with a licensed private utility. That'll be reviewed by the state board, he said, and possibly the district attorney. Suddenly, this wasn't about coy or neighborhood aesthetics anymore. It had become a matter of law, liability, and money. The residents who'd wandered into the clubhouse expecting a bit of HOA drama realized the board had managed to antagonize the one person keeping their landscaping alive, and that person had extensive documentation. 2 weeks later, the official notice went out. Notice of termination of non-potable water service, effective 30 days from this date. Rhodes Utility LLC will discontinue supply of non-potable irrigation and ornamental water to Cedar Ridge Estates. HOA service may be reinstated only under a new contract with full reimbursement for damages and legal costs. Installation of tamper detection equipment, triple market water rates, and a signed non-interference agreement from all board members. Patty attempted to frame it as some kind of strategic bluff. Then day 31 arrived. The entrance fountains died mid-gurgle. The pond level sank. The sprinklers gasped out dust. The once pampered slopes went patchy within a week, brown within 2. Residents woke up to crunchy lawns and HOA emails stuffed with the word unforeseen. Cedar Ridge, famed for its resort-level landscaping, now resembled a drought-stricken golf course. No one wanted. Worse yet, the board had to justify the special assessment. Legal expenses from my lawsuit, penalties from the Utility Commission for unauthorized interference, emergency quotes from commercial water haulers while they scrambled to find a replacement supplier. At the emergency town hall, someone finally voiced the obvious. So, you picked a fight with the man who owns our water because you didn't like his fish. The tone was disbelief bordering on hysterical. Patty's smile twitched as she tried to defend herself. He was being non-compliant, she began, but another resident lifted a printed screenshot of my security footage, her hand gripping the forbidden valve. This you? He asked, eyebrow raised. Being compliant? Nobody was laughing with her. They were laughing at her. Under mounting pressure, the rest of the board voted to accept my revised contract, agreed to my triple rate terms, signed a non-interference agreement so airtight it practically squealed, and formally acknowledged that I, not the HOA, owned the utility. I agreed to restore water service on one condition: the pump house fence would display a metal sign I had custom made. When I powered the system back on, the fountains came alive again. Sprinklers hissed back to life. The HOA released a collective breath. Then they saw the sign: Cedar Ridge Estates water features and irrigation supplied by Roads Utility LLC. This facility is private property. HOA personnel may not enter, touch, or inspect anything without written permission. Yes. This means you, Karen. T the bottom. A little cartoon koi wearing sunglasses grinned at them. The fallout reshaped Cedar Ridge in the way only humiliation and money can. To cover all the costs, the HOA had to raise dues. A special assessment hit every resident. All ornamental improvement projects were frozen indefinitely. Patty made one final attempt at re-election. Her slogan was about protecting our community's standards. Half the neighborhood countered with protecting our community's water bill. She lost in a landslide to a man whose entire platform was, "We are never making the utility owner mad again." The new board sent me a formal apology, revoked every violation notice ever issued to non-members, and added a bylaw requiring all communication with outside utilities to go through an attorney. The final accounting arrived a month later, after the board voted to hold her personally responsible for the unauthorized tampering. Patty owed $12,000 in legal fees. The Utility Commission fined her another $8,000 for interfering with regulated infrastructure. She was removed from the board on the spot, barred from any HOA position for 5 years, and her homeowner's insurance dropped her the moment they learned about the tampering conviction. I watched from my pond as she loaded boxes into her car one afternoon, face pale, mouth tight. Behind her, the fountains bubbled happily, running at triple the old rate. She didn't glance toward me once. 20 grand in fines and fees, I thought.